Hi everyone, in this video we are going to discuss the carbon cycle. So we understand that our two biggest greenhouse gases are water and carbon dioxide. So for the most part, I think we all understand how the water cycle works. So essentially we have rain, the precipitation comes down, the water collects on the ground, and it either evaporates, goes back in the atmosphere, or we absorb it down into our ground. So pretty simple, we've been talking about that cycle since we were 5 years old. Now what we're going to do is talk about the carbon cycle. So where is this carbon dioxide coming from? Is it possible that we could cut it down, find a way to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere? So that's essentially what we're going to do. And so for the carbon cycle, there are three main loops that we need to understand. And so essentially we have oxygen on one side and carbon on the other side, okay? In your mind, you can think of the carbon as carbon dioxide, but essentially we're just trying to figure out where the carbon is, where does it start, where does it come from? All right, so first things we're going to do is the easiest one for us to understand, and that's respiration. So respiration is what the humans do. We breathe in oxygen, exhale carbon dioxide. So we are always putting carbon out in the atmosphere. Every breath we take, we are putting carbon out there. So the opposite cycle of that would be photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is when our plants take our carbon dioxide, synthesis, and they convert it to oxygen for us. So they remove carbon out of the atmosphere. All right, so then another one we have is deforestation. So that's when we as humans come in and chop down tons of trees. So deforestation. And so that is adding more carbon into our environment. We're adding carbon. The opposite of that would be reforestation. So that's when we go back in and plant trees and try to add more trees to our environment. So reforestation. The last loop we have is actually kind of interesting, and it entirely involves around our oceans. So when we are putting more carbon into our atmosphere, that is when this is coming from our ocean. So we're putting carbon into the atmosphere. However, if we dissolve a bunch of carbon dioxide into our water, so deep down at the bottom of the ocean, we can actually take carbon out of our atmosphere. So this would just be into the ocean. So in general, we have, for everything that we put carbon into the environment, we have an opposite process that removes it. So respiration as humans, we add some carbon in, the photosynthesis removes it out. So that cycle right there typically has a net change of -1 gigaton per year. So that's really good. We remove more carbon than we put out in there. Deforestation is the opposite. We actually put about 1 more gigaton per year into the environment of carbon. So that's actually a bad one. And then our opposite one of our ocean, so from the ocean to the ocean, we actually end up removing more carbon than we do adding it. It's about -2 gigatons of carbon per year. But there is one more thing I do not have on this cycle, and so I have to come down here to do it. We are taking oxygen and turning it into carbon when we burn our fossil fuels. There is no opposite process of this. There's nothing working against it to try to negate the harm that we're doing. So instead of burning fossil fuels and then me drawing something else, we don't have a something else. We don't have a way to remove the carbon from our environment. So burning fossil fuels is really, really bad. It totally screws up our carbon cycle. So let's talk about the net results of all of this. And I'm doing this specifically in terms of CO2 emissions because that's our greenhouse gas. That's what we care about. So if we do the full breakdown here in terms of the carbon dioxide emissions, the most of it comes from our power plants and the way we essentially get heating. And so that's from 28%. Okay. Then we also have just industry. So all these big industrial plants, they are constantly putting carbon dioxide into our atmosphere, and they are at fault for 24%. Then we have our deforestation. It's chopping down our trees, 22%. Transportation, so anytime we're burning our gas, our gasoline, we're putting carbon dioxide out into the environment, that's 17%. And then the last one is more residential. So anytime you have a fire in your fireplace, something like that, maybe you go outside and burn leaves. Please don't do that. But if you do that, you're at fault for about 9% of our carbon dioxide emissions. So when we add this all up together, we essentially see that we are adding anywhere to 3.1 gigatons to 3.5 gigatons per year of carbon into our atmosphere. okay? That's a lot. 3.5 gigatons per year of carbon that we just add into our atmosphere, that there's nothing removing it out. There's no reversal of that. It's bad, guys. It's really bad. So here's my question. Do you think that we should look for a new source of energy? Perhaps find something else, find a different way instead of burning fossil fuels? What do you think, guys? Take care of yourselves.